Did you?
Jeez.
No, it gets better. Drove from Minneapolis today, then proceeded to drive downtown Chicago
What?
to pick up a 3D printer for my youngest
Massive, yes.
and drive back. It was like 10 hours of driving. We went and checked out Minnesota St. Paul.
Oh, wow.
So it was really great. And visited family.
Okay.
But I thought of you as I was driving.
I called Minnesota today.
Yeah, there you go.
It's about the same thing.
Driving to Minnesota?
Yeah, depends on who you were talking to at the people.
Mom and Dad.
She was a director today, so it was nice.
Yeah, possibly.
Well, nice.
They're
You know,
cut trees
when
down.
you go with you.
It's,
For a trip.
But boy, was it a
you
perfect,
know, it was one that.
I mean, the
that
weather
was
up there was
into-
so perfect.
And there are some other schools too that I thought, okay, I really like.
We're ready. We're on. We're live.
All right, let me call this Milburn School Board District 24 Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Ms. Boss?
Present.
Mr. Coleman?
Present?
Mr. Buziak? Mr. Lorenzen?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Pederini?
Present.
Ms. Roberts?
You stand for the pledge. The pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have any public comments? Does anyone have anything they'd like to add to the agenda?
I don't see anything about the SROs on there.
It's still on future agenda?
Is as
We should
specific.
put it.
District statement, yeah.
Will be on future agenda until we get some appointments with some experts, I guess.
Yep, working on it.
Oh, yeah, we were waiting for the meeting or whatever.
I took it off the future agenda items because I know we're working on it. It's not,
Okay.
we already we have a plan, so it's not a,
Okay.
it's gonna be a whole separate meeting from my understanding.
Okay. Information and
But thanks,
discussion.
keep reminding me.
Information and discussion, house lease.
Okay, so just as a reminder to the board, we have a house lease that's on a year-to-year lease basis, and that will be on the next agenda item for approval to extend to Anna Vivian for another year. Just wanted to put that on there to give you a heads up that we vote at the next meeting on that house lease for an extension.
Is everyone familiar with it?
Yeah, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to share the documents with you, all of the procedures and the process. This board just went through it last year, I believe, we opened it up for bids and did that whole process, so. Go through all of that, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Update on district succession of authority plan.
So the district has to, this has been on the future agenda items for a while, and instead of putting it on future agenda items, I'm gonna put it on so we can make sure to vote on it for the next meeting. Actually, you don't have to vote on it, it'll just be a presentation. Our board policy, and I can't recall which one it is at the moment, but it is that the superintendent has to present a succession plan in the case of me becoming unable to perform my duties or unavailable, let's say, accident of some sort, or if I'm not reachable, who's the next person in line. So we'll talk about that in our admin team tomorrow, will be on our agenda.
Special education support in Lake County.
Okay, so on Friday, we had a meeting here. We hosted a meeting with superintendents who are part of our co-op. Milburn is a member of a co-op, a 31 district co-op, which is it is the largest in Illinois and possibly the nation as far as a special education co-op. which presents some challenges and also can give us some opportunities. So we met on Friday specifically to discuss staffing shortages and what the implications are of that, both in the short term and the long term. There aren't a lot of solutions other than hiring people that don't exist. And CEDAW pointed out that they've hired 41 paraprofessionals from August till now. But there's still 40-some short, I believe, or more positions that are open today. And they have teaching positions, speech pathologist positions, nursing positions, etc. As do many other districts in Lake County. So there's a lot of frustration around that because, as you can imagine, with special education students, if we can't get people in the classroom to help those students out, that causes more disruptions for a classroom, for the teacher in the classroom, which then impacts other students' learning and makes the teacher more frustrated and tired, gonna have more traffic in the office for discipline. It kind of impacts everything, every part of the school district's operation. So it is frustrating. There are, again, no immediate solutions, but we talked about what is the future of CEDAW. So we're gonna have some more meetings and really try to hone and define CEDAW's role, what they can do well, what their mission statement is, what are those core programs that CEDAW can and should and we need them to do well. And so they may be looking at what that looks like in the future and doing some strategic planning around that. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up about that. It's good conversations. It's not the first time in my tenure that we've had these conversations with CEDAW and about CEDAW. We went through this process 8 years ago, maybe, when the state changed the way they issued our IDEA funds, which are, Mr. Rollins, can you remind me what IDEA stands for?
Individualized.
Throwing you right under the bus. Shock.
Individual Disabilities Education.
Oh yeah, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is from the federal government. So they issue funding. It flows through the state. It's called flow-through money as well. It flows through the state, and it used to go from us to CEDAW, or from CEDAW to us. But the formula changed so that we got it first and then give it back to CEDAW. Something happened, and I don't know the mechanics specifically, but I know that it impacted the way we funded CEDAW and how that all works. So we did some investigation then about how prioritizing funding and putting the dollars into programs, putting those dollars from the federal funding and the basic funding into the co-op at a greater rate for programs that we felt were the highest priority for them. For example, the highest priority for us that Melbourne will never be able to provide services for would be a student who has severe and profound physical disabilities, or intellectual severe and profound, which would be the Laremont School. That's their center-based school, which is a top-notch school, one of the top in the country. They do excellent services. The whole school was built around providing services for students with severe physical and mental disabilities. So that was the discussion back then, and our funding formula back then. We talked about, okay, so if we believe that these are the highest priorities, most of the money from this flow-through dollars should go to those programs first. And then if school districts are using programming for CEDAW that maybe is not a high priority, or that school districts should be able to provide on their own, but some districts still need that, then they're gonna pay that out of their local funds. So that's a very confusing and brief history, but that's part of the discussion, and I'm always happy to talk about CEDAW funding. It impacts Melbourne directly in more ways than one, because we both have students who go out to CEDAW programs, and we are hosting students from all over the county in CEDAW programs who are located in our buildings. So that's it. We met on Friday to discuss that, because there's some people who are frustrated. Because of the staffing shortage, CEDAW has said, okay, you cannot put any more kids in these classes, which I agree with. And I fully support, because you can't put kids in classes that don't exist, who don't have teachers. So some districts are getting frustrated, saying CEDAW is here to provide these services. If you're not providing the services, why do we have CEDAW, or why are we paying for CEDAW? Well, good point, but no one can, you can't create something out of nothing, and this is a problem that we all have, so. Down the road, it may lead to some restructuring and changes for some of those programs that aren't center-based, like Laremont, and John Powers is a school for the deaf and hard of hearing, and they're located in Hawthorne. And that's also a top-notch school, one of the top in the country. Fairhaven is a school that is for severely autistic students. There's different levels of on the autism spectrum. So students that would be severe and profound with that particular need go to Fairhaven, and they're wonderfully supported there, but they're short-staffed, so that there's no openings there, and we have students who need to go there, and so it's really tough.
Do we have students at this point though that we would like to place there?
We do not as of right now.
Yeah, I was just
For
yeah.
Fairhaven of Melbourne students. But it does impact us.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just curious more of just.
Yep.
That's the question, so yeah.
Yep.
No, it affects us.
Yep.
It affects our community at large too.
Yep.
So what happens if there's no space available and a student transfers in who needs
Right.
those services? What happens?
Right. It's a problem. Mr. Rollins is dealing with that right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of, CEDAW is obviously one of our big go-tos for our students, but that's a public therapeutic day school. There's a lot of private therapeutic day schools out there that we also look into and opportunities there. But it's hard. It's really hard right now in just all areas to find
And then
schools and supports for certain students.
what would happen if, say, we don't have enough staffing to cover the number of minutes that our special ed students in-house need? What then happens?
Yeah, we just work really hard to make that happen, and if it doesn't, I mean, we certainly could provide compensatory services for at a later time. That could be done in a contractual way where we contract out and bring somebody in to provide those services. When there is room in a location, we can provide compensatory services and pay for those services later. Later down the road, probably not too far down the road, but later to make up for that lost time.
Is the state doing anything to bring in more special ed teachers? Do they have any plans?
One thing the state did this fall that has helped tremendously is lowered the requirements for paraprofessionals to a high school degree. So in the past,
They had increased recently, right, the requirements.
no,
And that's
well,
what led
they
to the
bounced back.
shortages.
They
Yeah.
probably, during COVID, they reduced them, and then they put them back up to where they were,
Yeah.
and then now they've gone down to high school.
Yeah, I remember that was one of the problems when I was on the CEDAW board, is that
Yeah.
they changed requirements, and people that had been there were committed, and it's amazing. I mean, if you can ever tour it, I really encourage it, because the commitment of the people that work there it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And now these people that had been doing that, filling that role, all of a sudden we're told they weren't meeting requirements. And so that led to people, leaving. So I'm glad to hear, and that was one of the questions I was gonna ask, I'm glad to hear that they have reduced the requirements. Okay.
That
And I
is
know
how,
some of the districts too have decided, so the funding used to go right to CEDOL. Now it's going to the districts and then they feed into CEDOL. And there have been districts that have decided not to utilize the services and to bring those in-house. Has CEDOL stated that they're not making a real impact to their ability to provide services? Or is it so not, minimal that districts are doing that?
some districts have done that.
Yeah.
Milburn has been a district that in the past has brought as many programs back into our school as we can. I strongly believe, and I think most of my colleagues believe this as well, that students are best served, if at all possible, in their home district, as close to home as possible. But again, so we do everything. In Milburn, and I don't want to disparage any other districts, but Milburn has done a really, really nice job and worked hard at trying to keep our kids here as long as possible. And we've been able to do that because we have staffing and space. Not everybody has space even if they have staffing, or if they have space, no staffing. So we've been fortunate to be able to staff and we have space. So there's all kinds of different reasons for why other districts might not be able to do that or have the capacity. But we have done that. And now CEDOL is encouraging more people to do that. We actually tuition in students from smaller districts in the area for some of our programs, like our early childhood special education program. We tuition in students from Grass Lake and Emmons, and we have in the past from Antioch, but they've taken back their programming, so they don't have students here at this point. Some of our autism programming, we at one point had early childhood all the way through 8th grade, continual autism programming. These would be students who are mild to moderate on the spectrum, autism spectrum. So we have provided programming and services for students who needed that here. And we've tuitioned in kids from other districts for that program, and that's worked well. So that's some of the solutions that we're talking about, enhancing that or doing that model more. That might be a little more efficient than students going through CEDOL to come back into the building through a CEDOL program with CEDOL staff in a different environment. It's not quite as efficient. And kids are further from home. So when we do it, it would be continuous, they're at least seeing kids with their peers who they might see on the soccer field or playground, or even, going to the same high school as students here. It's complicated, it's very complicated, and there's a lot to it, but just want the board to know that we're discussing it and we're open and appreciate all the support that the Milburn boards have given currently and in the past to whatever we need to do to support kids.
Thanks.
And keep staff, as Sean said, the staff, CEDOL staff is so dedicated and so strong, and the Milburn staff as well, just, appreciate that. But when it gets tough, it's taxing on a classroom, as you guys can imagine. If we have disruptive children that we are unable to support like we would, like the kids need. So, it's a struggle. Nothing you haven't heard me say in the last few months, but.
Any other questions? Illinois School Designation Scores.
Okay. Each year, the state issues school district report cards that you may be familiar with. This goes on the website that everyone has access to. These are not released yet. This would be the results of the 2022 last spring's Illinois Assessment of Readiness. So these scores and designations and data are all going to be released within a month or so, typically. And so before they're released, we being school personnel, get access to them to look them over and be ready to talk about them with our public. So we have some of these scores, but really what I want you to see tonight, there's so much information in here, but I want everyone to have an idea of what you can look at, because there's some really good information. Not just the scores, but the types of information that you can look up and get into and dig deep on. It's pretty cool. So I wanted everybody to be aware of it, because you can do this on your own, and I sometimes forget, oh yeah, there's that thing I can look up and get that information. We don't have any comparable data to any other districts other than the state. That's all, because we don't have public access available for other school districts.
But we'll get them in a month.
In a month, yeah, anybody can look up, you just type in your school district you want to look at, and away you go. So I'm just going to go through briefly. If you want to see something, just let me know. If you have questions, just going to kind of go through what's on this page. So I am in the Illinois school report card, and I am on the page where it says proficiency. So when you open up the main page, you're going to see this. This is a nice summary.
What grade level is this for?
This would be the whole district.
The whole district. So
when I'm looking at this, I'm looking as a district.
Okay.
3rd through 8th grade.
3rd through 8th grade.
Yep, 3rd through 8th, thanks.
That's
Yeah.
what I was asking.
Not just kindergarten, 3rd through 8th grade take this assessment in the spring. So this is last year's children.
Gotcha.
Okay. So this is a snapshot. The AR is the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. So combined average, Milburn has 44% of our students meeting or exceeding on the state test, the IAR. The state is here, Milburn is up here. This is ELA and math, 47%, and the state doesn't give a percentage, but it is less than that. The science assessment, 80% proficient. Science does not give the state average there. Then it gives a couple of other pieces. Our growth on IAR, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about growth and how that is calculated. So how our students are growing from year over year is right at the state average in math and a little bit higher in ELA. Students passing algebra in 8th grade. So these are the percentage of students in 8th grade who are passing algebra 1. That would be 71% of our 8th graders versus the state was 40%-ish state average.
What is the scatter plots?
I'm gonna hit the scatter plots over here.
Okay.
So I'm gonna click into now a little bit more depth on each of these. So when we look at proficiency, there's all kinds of ways that we can break this up. Here's where we get the percentages. So overall group, this district proficiency 44.4% and 29.9% and versus the state. And this is on ELA. Flip over to math, 48% proficiency versus 25% proficiency for math. So proficiency is this is what our kids level can do on average.
We're saying 48% on it, like, you know, an average of 48% of our students are meeting the benchmark set by the state?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, recently you spoke about that, what the benchmark was. It said it can be somewhat deceptive, right?
Correct.
So can you remind us again what that was?
Yeah, for students to be able to hit this benchmark, we're finding that they have to score on the MAP assessment, which is another standardized assessment that the kids just took this fall, a couple weeks ago. They have to be in the 70th percentile or above in order to have a chance to meet or exceed.
To be meet or?
Just to hit the meet.
So you're in the 70th percentile just to meet or exceed?
Yep. The state has set the standard
That's
very
what it is.
high
Okay.
as far as their meets. So you have to be in the 70th percentile. So you have to be more than a half of a standard deviation above the norm
And MAP is
in order to meet.
national?
MAP is national. Yep. Okay, now we can select how we want to break it down. So let's select all, and we can add the demographics in, and then it gives a chart of how our students scored demographically. So we can look at white students versus the state's average white students, black students versus state average black students, and we can also obviously compare within the district our white students to black students, Hispanic to state, Asian. If there's no data available, it means we don't have enough students in that category to get a reading. I think the minimum is 10 students. So when we're looking at the district, keep in mind that's 3rd through 8th grade, and there's a number here. I believe it's 10 students, but I can't be certain. It used to be 20 and they dropped it to 10. Did they go back up to 20? I'm not sure, but it's a very small sampling. Nonetheless, it could be a very small sampling. But this would be less than 10 because anything less than 10, there's a risk of identifying specific kids.
Okay.
And it's not inaccurate. It's not enough to give you
Oh, yeah, so
Correct.
it's privacy and avoidance of
it's,
data.
it's a privacy issue in addition to, in order for it to be a reliable number, they want at least 10. And even that, if you talk to statisticians, that number's too low, but it's
That makes
something, still.
Do you know what percentage of our students are categorized as low income? Is that even a data point we can?
15%, Veronica?
I would say about 15, it
It's
used to be about 10.
15 to, I think it bounces up and down a little bit depending on the grade levels. It was 18, up to 18% one year, but it's been as low as 10. When I started, it was 2. But part of that is the way that is reported. So it's changed, the qualifications have changed too over time, so it's really hard to go
Compare
back
year to year?
year to year. So these are all proficiency scores. Again, you can go back in a month whenever this comes out and look at this and spend some more time, because for me, I like to look at this and think about it and go back and forth.
Jason, can we see, I saw there was a female category, non-binary category. I missed if there was a male category.
Yes, ma'am.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay.
And this was for math. go down ELA. So we can compare and look a little bit more granular at how we're doing in certain areas. So we can also look, that's proficiency, so that's saying, okay, we want all of our kids to run first grade or third grade, they're gonna run the mile in 10 minutes. In fourth grade, they're gonna run the mile in 9 minutes. And doesn't matter what their abilities are, this is what they have to hit. We know that's kind of a silly target because only so many kids are gonna be able to hit that based on their physical limitations. If we run kids longer, yeah, they might hit that, but that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about proficiency. This is the target. We want to see how many kids we can get over that target. Now we're talking about growth. This is, in my opinion, a better measure. It's because it takes kids from wherever they're at the year before. It says, okay, whatever your score was the year before, you're compared to all the other students in Illinois with that particular score the year before and how they grew from one year to the other. So they're taking, if I scored a 650 in fourth grade, I am now in fifth grade. I'm compared to all the other students in Illinois and how they, whoever it was that got a 650, I'm compared to those students to see how we grew to the next year. And so we are right on average, a little bit above average in that model.
53% grew more than the kids who started in sixth grade, and 47% grew less, 40%.
So everyone's scores would be suppressed because of the pandemic then, so it really would hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, we can put in demographics, break it out by ELA and math, and see how we did in each category. Across the board. So here would show that our black students actually in ELA and math had the greatest growth from one year to the next.
And then we can obviously then look at the last 5 years and say, and compare, like, so I look at the math and I see that the female math for Milburn looks a little lower. So we could go back and say, is this an anomaly or is this a trend?
Correct.
Yeah.
So now on this one, not every one of these areas has functionality to go back years, but this one does.
Okay.
Which is good. And yes, you could figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So 2020, there is zero information in here. So we didn't take it in 2020. 2021, take with a grain of salt because that was a year where it was optional. We still had, Milburn still had enough information in there, but most schools did not. But 2019, so I'm going back to 2019 because that was the last full year. So in 2019, we can see that our growth was definitely higher than it was this year overall. Okay, so that's growth. Looking at how our kids are growing year over year. Participation rate, I'm not gonna bother with because we're 100% and the state average is 98, something like that. Doesn't mean a whole lot of nothing. Achievement gap, achievement gap. Let's talk about achievement gap. So we can take these, again, we can take it by subject area and compare different groups of achievement gaps with how we do in the state. So we can take low income, non-low income, and low income. So there's, the Milburn gap is 19 points, the state gap for that group is 30 points in 2019. And now do we have, this one's a nice one to see the trends actually. We're trending down, so our gap is actually increasing and our achievement, our proficiency score is also decreasing. You can see that drop.
Or you could say you're trending up from the COVID year,
You could.
2020, right?
You could say that.
You do.
We're on the way back.
Yeah.
I would guess that this is gonna go back and
Yeah.
level off
In
somewhere
alignment, yeah.
in this range within the next couple of years. But it's interesting to see.
Yeah.
I would hope, you know, I would hope that there would be a drop in some cases just because of the disruptions we had in education for the 2 years. If we didn't see a drop, I would kind of question why are the kids in school so much?
Yeah.
So it's not a terrible thing to see a drop. Am I concerned about it? Do we have work to do? Absolutely. But it's gonna be okay. So we can go down the page and see all of the comparisons all the way down. Now I've mentioned before in ELA, the female and male gap, because it's much larger, significantly larger than the state. It was actually starting to shrink here. And it has shrunk, interestingly, here. So is that a function of because of us paying attention to that and noticing it and making some changes in our curriculum? Is that part of that, or is it just because of some other
It's a pretty
factors?
significant change though.
It is, yeah.
I mean, 23 to 10, that's not a little bobble.
Or were our female students more impacted by COVID than our male students? They just didn't drop as much. I don't know. It's interesting to look at. When we look at math, the male and female difference. There was very little difference. Females were a little bit ahead of males in math. Again, this year, and then last year it flipped, males, females.
It's almost so close, it's almost.
It's pretty close. You know, and when it's that close, is it cohort? Because we're still not comparing the same kids year over year. On this chart, we're not comparing the same kids. We have 8th grade graduate out and a new 3rd grade class, so that could make a significant enough difference to if it's close. But again, we're looking at trends over time. That's the most important.
It's nice to see what's lower down with the IEP, non-IEP gap actually got smaller, and maybe it's not significant enough, but with getting, that means it was a real success in getting kids services, you know, during a difficult time, because it didn't increase. That means there was a lot of creativity and that's nice to see,
Yeah, the proficiency with IP students actually went up
yeah.
here. But the gap decreased because the non-IP proficiency went down.
Yeah, but it
It
didn't push it all down,
Right,
you
right.
know?
Right? Yeah. True.
It's the same thing with females and males. The proficiency went down between 19 and 21 and 22. 21, 22 roughly the same.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's under achievement gaps, you can look at that. So we've looked at proficiency, growth percentile, achievement gap, and now performance scatter plots. Okay, let's look at this. So here's where we could compare to our peer groups, or try to compare to our peer groups as much as possible. This graph, well, let me move it up a little bit so it's, this is where Milburn falls on this particular chart. This is a percent of low income, so our percent of low income is about 14%. So, Veronica, you were right, 15%. 14%. And our students are performing in this group on ELA 25%. So this shows all the school districts with, if we're going this way, higher percentages of low income, and there's, that group is still performing high, or the same or higher. If you go the other way, with smaller percentage of low income, there are some districts performing lower and some districts performing higher. So in this chart, you would want to be where this group is. With your percent of low income, 59%, and they're hitting 59% of the proficiency. So it'd be interesting to see what they're doing with that group.
Yeah.
We'll eventually, can you see what school that is? Did it say in the highlight?
North Palos School
Okay.
District 117. Okay. Now we can pick all kinds, I won't go through all of these, we've seen information on it. We can look at per pupil expenditure. So when we look at per pupil expenditure on instruction, this is where we land. So we are here at $8,570 per student expenditure. This is where we land in the state. You go this way, they're spending more per pupil. You go this way, they're spending less. You'll see that we, in this, as you go up, it's performance. So when we look at our performance, we're much higher than average compared to how much we spend.
Who's in the
Per
upper
pupil.
left, Jason?
What's that?
Who's in the upper left?
Bartelso School District 57. I have no idea where that is. And I don't know how they're only spending $4,000 per student
Right.
instructionally. I am guessing that a lot of these are downstate schools. Germantown is I did look them up, they're in Peoria. They're a suburb of Peoria, it's a small school district, a little smaller than ours, but similar. So you can do things like that. We can look at, hey, what are school districts who are given some of our same environments? And I don't know, this is just looking at finances. That doesn't tell you free and reduced, or doesn't tell you any other makeup. But just based on that, what are some school districts doing differently than us where they might be seeing some success? Or are we doing terrible? No, I can't. There's nothing on here that says we're doing terrible. It says we're doing pretty good. But could we do better? Is there room for improvement? Absolutely. If we go back to 2019, we were in a little bit better shape with this because our scores are higher. So this is the state average in expenditures. So we're just below the state average 2019. And you go to 2022, we're well below the state average in expenditures here on instruction. And our test scores are down a little bit.
And we don't know if that's because of the cohorts or if that's because of,
Well, it's because of
COVID.
instructional time, would be my guess. Again, I would expect it to go down given the disruptions in education that we had in 2 years
that's
in general.
what
We can look at operational expenditure per pupil. So here in 2022, we're just above operational. Relative to our scores, pretty good. Oops. Let's go back to 2019. We're just at the state average for operational. Does anybody have any conjecture to why that might be true? That we've shifted slightly in our operational expenditures per pupil?
COVID, high rate of attendance during that, across the measures.
Maybe.
72% days in service.
Yeah, maybe.
The busing would have gone down, that's part of operational, or no, is that, what would busing be part of?
But I don't know I think it does figure into the operational expenditures. It's Ed Fund O&M. Transportation. Actually, I don't think it does. Because then you couldn't compare because transportation is such a huge variable across the state.
Depending on the type, yeah.
So these are the kinds of questions where we have to think and have, people are going, this is public information, how do you explain this?
Does that include the new boiler we had to buy? Is that
No.
the year we did that?
No. No, new boiler would not include that. But what's happening in Milburn is, this is part of it, I don't think it explains it all, but part of it is our enrollment is going down. And we still have the same size buildings.
Per pupil, okay.
So when it's measured per pupil, we're not, back 10 years ago when we measured it, we were spending about the same amount of money, or even a little bit less, but you're dividing that by 1,600 students who are in our buildings versus now we have 1,100 students in our buildings. So some of that operational expense, we're gonna see it creep over, and we try to bring it back as best we can through efficiencies, but that's why the per pupil stays there. What we've also done is some things to offset that, knowing that. So things like hosting, we have 10 seat-all classrooms in our district. So instead of saying, oh, shoot, we have shrinking enrollment, we have this asset here that, where we can share with other students and, across the county. Let's take advantage of that. That doesn't decrease our expenditures at all. In fact, it increases our expenditures, but it also increases our revenues. This only reflects expenditures. Does that make a little bit of sense? So we're
Then
doing
we
some
said
things
we'd
to
have
off,
look out for years ago.
we're doing some things to offset some of these impacts for us as a district on finances. But if you're just looking at this graph, you're going, why is our school district spending over the state average? Well, I would ask that question,
Yeah.
because that's what I would do as a taxpayer. But having that explanation, then I would say, okay, makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah. Basically, fixed costs aren't being offset by as many pupils.
Right.
And the horizon continues to shrink.
Basically. We'll point out our English language learners have really shown up strong on every measure that we've looked at on these, which I was actually pleasantly surprised by, so that's a good thing.
Jason, can we see that top left again? I looked up, other school, or Telso is right next to Germantown.
Right next to what?
Germantown.
Oh, is it? There's
Pecan cracking plant.
yeah. There's some nice school districts there that get some good revenue. This just gives a little snapshot of our district, the environment, so you can look at our school climate results from the 5 essential surveys. Look at our finances, average class sizes, evidence-based funding. That one's a complicated one that won't tackle tonight, but we have a $14 million adequacy target. This is saying that we have 12 million in financial resources so that there's a gap. So this district is at 87% of adequacy. Basically what that says is our district resources that we already know this, locally, don't provide enough revenue to give what the state has determined through the evidence-based funding model to be a at least basically adequately functioning school.
So what do we need to do to get another $2 million here?
Well, what we have done is pass a referendum.
I mean, what business are we starting to get to?
Yeah,
$2 million?
please do that. That's a lot. That's why homeowners are feeling it so hard. That's huge. Because we've made up for that gap. Our local taxpayers are making up for that gap by paying higher taxes.
How do they determine the adequacy target? I mean, if that's not like a dissertation length answer, you know.
It is.
Is there a truncated version of that, or?
Yeah, you can look at on the ISB's website. timeline. This tells you what the, this doesn't explain the adequacy target, it tells you what the formula is.
Okay.
So your adequacy target is determined by the number of students in your district, the number of, percentage of low income, percentage of special education, percentage of English language learners, based on what it would take for, support for that, and then they say, okay, this is what your district should be at,
Okay.
what you need to provide a basic education for that. So everybody has a different adequacy
Right.
target. So this says, you know, your core investments are, you should have one teacher for every 15 students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. If you are in a high concentration poverty area, if you're in a non-concentrated poverty, like Milburn, for example, we don't have a high poverty rate. So our recommended is 1 to 20 for K through 3rd. 4th through 8th is 1 for 25. That's your class size.
Mhm.
Our district average is 22, so we're right there. And it goes into this many specials teachers, so many social workers per so many students. What else do they put in the formula? There's 27 different items.
Thanks.
Yep.
I put my head down when you got to this PowerPoint, but did you go through the EBF section of ISB?
I believe so. I just typed it in and searched, so.
So if you go into this same website and type in evidence-based funding, under finance budgets and funding, all things evidence-based funding will come up, and at the bottom are some webinars. If ever you're really interested in watching some fun videos there, but they're really good. I think they were rolled out when EBF came out.
There it is.
Thanks, Carly.
And if you really want to get wonky, you can look at the spreadsheet. And how they calculate it.
And I think has, yeah, the calculations by district.
Mm-hmm. So here they have the calculations by district, and it's a massive spreadsheet. Each tab has multiple
Yeah.
calculations. Okay. That's the school report card. Tons and tons. Again, what I'm trying to get accomplished tonight is just showing that there's tons of information out there. Good stuff. I don't know why.
It's a red shirt.
Anybody have any questions? Future agenda items, you're done, right?
Yep.
district superintendent goal updates, position statements, I'm sure policies will be in there. Superintendent's report.
Okay, we had a successful Camp Timberley trip after a 2-year hiatus. And how many kids went, Jake?
Probably about 110.
110 kids went to Camp Timberley. They were having a great time. Chaperones, a lot of great feedback, and probably the best weather ever. It's amazing weather. 8th grade is going to Springfield on November 10th and 11th, I believe. And the cross-country team this weekend, the boys took first in the sectional, and the girls took second in the sectional. And so both teams are going to state. And they're pretty excited about it. Yeah, lots of fun.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it's really awesome. We're looking forward to that. State is in Bloomington this weekend on Saturday. And then we have the Lake Division meeting coming up on Wednesday for Illinois Association of School Boards. I think Sean is going to
Yeah.
bring it. That's it.
Board reports. We do have an Eagle project we're doing on October 23rd. We're going to be building that Gaga pit. And then another scout who was in Milburn student is going to make jazz fronts for the jazz band. And that will be this month because he turns 18 next month. He's got to get it done. Not scheduled, but it's getting done this month. So, yeah. So those things are good to look forward to. Oh, business office report. I skipped right over.
It's okay. It's so fun.
We've had
No, you
enough looking
wanted-
at screens today.
Okay, so, a lot going on over the next couple of weeks. We have building and grounds, so we have every year an annual inspection that's held by the Regional Office of Education, so that's coming up next week. So our new Director of Buildings and Grounds, Tim Smith, he has been busy working on making sure everything is, ready to go. So he and I are working on that this week as well. Under Human Resources, Brandy Baird, the coordinator of business services, she attended her first Lake County Personnel Admin and Northwest School Personnel meeting. So prior to COVID, this group would get together just about every month. It's made up of all of the HR personnel at school districts in Lake County, and they get together and share information basically to create efficiencies within the department. So Brandy was able to go and meet the HR personnel of Lake County. Finance, so we're jumping out of the budget and audit and right into the tax levy. So I will begin working on that this month. And what is posted in this document is the tax levy calendar. So similar to the budget calendar, this is dictated by the state. Our first reading will be the first board meeting in November. And then essentially it will need to be approved in December. Let's see there. And submitted to the county basically by the end of December. So in between there's something called a truth in taxation statement. This is if we will be levying more than 105% of what we levied the previous year. I don't think we've had to do that, at least in the time I've been in the business office.
But we will this year.
We will likely have to do that this year, because a couple of the components that go into the tax levy equation are CPI from December of the previous year, which was pretty high, it was 7%, and all of the new property that we're seeing with Briargate. But more to come on the tax levy in early November. And then if you could scroll down just a bit, please. I'm working also on the school maintenance project grant, so this is where we could be awarded $50,000 to put towards various maintenance projects. So we're looking at some flooring here in the elementary school, possibly some other projects. I'm having our architect look at a kiln repair. I don't think that will be anywhere near 50,000, so we may not be able to apply it there. But that will be something that we need to review and approve in the next board meeting. And then very last, transportation. Dr. Lind and I met with the bus lease company, Midwest Transit, last Thursday. We talked to them about extending our current lease versus a new lease, trying to get a feel for the supply chain issues that are out there. They're recommending extending the current lease, so they're getting numbers for us on a 1 and 2 year extension. So I'm hoping to have those numbers by the next board meeting as well. And that is it from the business office side.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Everyone good on that? Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn to closed session for number 1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body, or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Paul,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Present?
Mr. Gouzier, Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Petterini,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts.
We're going into closed session. When we come back out, we're just going to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Oh my God.